This is Arlen again. We are finishing up this tabard. I decided to skip the neck hole, and we're going straight into the last step, which is going to be doing the hems. This is more of that straight line work that I'm talking about. Now, the way I did this is this hem is 1/2 inch wide. It's a finished hem, meaning it's been folded twice. This way you don't see the unfinished edge. That unfinished edge is now hidden. So you kind of have like a tube here going all the way around. So the way I like to do hems, I'll do the sides first, and then I do the bottom on the front and the back. I'm not sure why. It's just something I've always done. But we're starting at the bottom. I did my front and back to lock in that stitch. We're going to just be cutting those at the end here. So, going back to some of my tricks that I do to make sure that things remain straight. Being at this is 1/2 inch wide. We moved the needle, you can see here. This is at my 3 setting. This is center, this is 3. So we're getting really close to the inside of the foot. But if you notice, this hem, the inside of the hem, is up against the inside of the foot here. And that's what we're going to be using to keep this entire project as straight as we can. So we're going to keep on going. Sorry for the shakiness, but my camera, as I said before, is on like a snake neck camera pod kind of thing on my table. So. I like to go right over the edge. Makes a nice little knot on the end. So, see here, we got a pretty uniform line all the way across. Can't see it very well because I am using a matching thread this time around. Normally I don't do that. I like to have some color clash in hems, but this time we are. Now, with this one, I'm going to start here. Go back a ways. I don't make tabards as much as as often or frequently as I do tunics. Tunics, back when I first started playing an amp guard, tunics were like the top of the garbing pyramid, I guess you could say, as far as like skill and look, like the fashion, I guess. Tabards were always kind of like your introductory way of getting garbed. So all these little threads here, we're gonna cut after we get the hems done. So I'm not fantastic at doing tabards. A big reason for that is even with my tunics, I don't do hems. I like to do applique finishing, which is similar to bias tape, but way different as far as like the finished look, because you can make your trim look however you want. Doesn't have to be straight. It could be like have triangular cuts or squares, or look like a wrought iron fence if you really wanted to. I usually don't use pins either when I do hems, but I didn't do these one at a time. I wanted to do this all at once. It was one of those things where I was practicing a technique or a method. Okay, so sorry, I'm not as talkative with this one. The better you are at ironing your hems, or just the more ironing and time you give your hems, the flatter they're going to lay. You'll see right here I do have some curling happening because I think I started, this was probably the first side I ironed down, and so the fabric is starting to relax again. And when that happens, it doesn't lay as flat and crisp as it was when it was freshly ironed. So. That being said though, the stitching part, like once you've got your technique down and you have a few different tricks to help you, as I said, my big trick is using the foot itself. But once you have that down, you can actually bust out some hems pretty quick. You saw in a previous video, front fell seams are pretty difficult, and knowing how you're going to lay them out. But once you get it down, like I can do those now without even needing to iron. So we're going to go real slow here. One reason why I don't like doing tabards is actually this right here. Not the thread, but these hems don't always line up right for me for whatever reason. Even though this was cut square, it just, I don't know, does like a cinnamon roll type of thing. Okay. This is the last of the short seams. So we're going to try to do this real quick. Try to lay this out. I have the entirety of the tabard up on my table surface here, so that way the weight of the fabric doesn't try to influence what's going on. If you ever find that the fabric is stretching away as you're moving, or if it's drifting one way or the other, generally that is because your fabric is hanging off of your work surface. Okay, so going to the edge. And again, we're finishing it by doing a stitch over. It's just a preference of mine, I don't know why. And so again, you can see just how uniform that ends up looking. And that's your trick. That's really all you need to do, is keep your fabric up on the table surface. Don't let it hang. And then follow your lines. Follow your tools. It's not cheating. There's no such thing as cheating when it comes to making art. It's just using more tools. When I quit playing Amp Guard for a while, I picked up miniature painting for like Warhammer 40,000. That was kind of like my outlet. And for whatever reason, me and my friends that I were playing with, we had this mentality that painting miniatures with an airbrush was cheating. But like I said, it's not cheating, it's just using a tool. Using a tool that fits you. Do this fast. When I paint miniatures now, I only use an airbrush. It's very rare that I use a hairbrush. Or I should say a regular paintbrush. One of the best ways, like you'll see, my hands are kind of getting in the way when I take the pins out, but if you let your pins going this way, it's easier to pull them out than if you had them coming this way. But just old habits. I said that doing the hems on a tabard were probably the last step. For me, it's the last of the sewing that I'm doing. But the last step actually is just cleaning up your project. I have a dog. Dante is his name. And he sheds a lot. Like you can see, there's some dog hair here. So my actual last step for a lot of my projects, before I wash them for a final time, before like entering them into a competition or whatever, the last thing I do is take a lint brush, a lint roller to everything, get all the dog hair off, iron it, press it, wash it. I wash all my Amp Guard stuff on Delicate. The reason for that is that even though no matter how much time and care you put into making sure that your stitch work is fine. When you do that locking stitch, it going back and forth. When you hand stitch it behind it and tie your knot, you still have a chance of all of that being undone. It's very rare. I've never had it happen, but I don't want to take chances, so everything's on delicate. People say that you lose a lot of, not really a lot, but you lose some of your fabric when washing linen. I maybe, if my linen is a square, is a 1 yard square, I'm maybe losing 1 inch total, and it becomes like 35 by 36 or something like that. So it happens, but it's not as severe as people like to think it is. Worst thing about buying linen is I buy from thefabricstore.com, and every single cut or every color that you pick out, they want you to make a 2 yard minimum purchase of. Okay, so we're almost done here. This is the last pin. We're coming back to that very first corner. Oh. Okay, that's the last stitch. So now we're gonna show this off a little bit. Let's move this. So you'll see, now like I said, I'm gonna be posting up a picture of this in the LARP Arts group on Facebook once it's all finished. But there's our uniform line. One thing I'll also recommend too, from a competitive standpoint, and as far as mastering your technique, get as close to this hem edge as you can and get used to it soon. When I judge, I knock off points if I see a hem is stitched right down the center, because what ends up happening when you wash that over time, it's going to fold. So you'll see here it's catching, but this isn't going to fold as severely as it would if it were right in the center here. So doing that, get used to it. It's really not that hard. It's harder to get the control to make it straight more than anything. But once you start getting in that habit, like you can see just how uniform that is, and that's just by following your presser foot. That's all you got to do. So we have a finished hem here, and then right here we have a flat fell seam. Here's the facing for the neck. What I ended up doing was just folding this over once, and then here you'll see that very uniform stitch work too. Here's a top stitch around the neck to reinforce that some more. And then there's my park heraldry. This was done on my embroidering machine. That's a whole different thing though that we'll get into eventually. So, all right. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll do some more videos. There's more coming. One of these days we'll do a full tunic. But that's going to come after 2 more personal goals. I have trying to get my Master Garber, and then I'm trying to get my Serpent Knight belt. So depending on how things go, we'll do some more stuff. But we'll see you. The next big event that's going on in Trader's Gate is that we have Qualls on the 19th of November, which happens to be just 2 days before my birthday. So hopefully we'll see you guys out there if you go. We do have our fighting tournament that day as well. So all fun. You guys have a good night.